There's a lot that you can do inside HeavyBid to be efficient, and if you are an estimator, or if you know estimators who are, the majority of their work is manually typing in activities, so they go and they create all their activities by hand, really at the risk of falling behind. There's a lot more efficient ways to do estimating inside HeavyBid. Most of you should at least be at the point where you're copying from job to job and not having to enter that activity. But the smartest companies out there are really focusing on using those code books, those activity code books, those bid item code books, those common structures that can really make your repetitive work so much easier when you actually go to put a bid together. And so if you've never seen how code books work, sometimes the best way to get inspired on setting them up is to see how the end result of how it actually works. So I want to show you what it's like to create an estimate and get started with code books. So I'm going to open up HeavyBid. There we go. I'm going to open up HeavyBid, and I'm going to import in from the Department of Transportation file that I've got. So it's going to grab the DOT file, and it'll take 66 items and bring it into my bid in just a second here. So it makes that a quick, easy way to do that. I'm going to hit that build button, and what that's going to do is it's going to match up the items that got brought in with my code book. So you see those plus signs on the left-hand side going down the screen, that last change in the upper right, the green bar going across the screen. When all that finishes, it's taken a total of almost $10 million and put it into the bid. And if I expand out this first item here, notice it can bring in one or many activities, complete with crews, complete with default production rates. But now as an estimator, rather than entering things manually, I can take the time to review this bid, make changes to this bid, think about alternative methods to do things that can get it done in a much more efficient manner. And so I'm using my time as an estimator, using my brain instead of using my fingers to type everything into the system. So it's a great tool. We've got a lot of classes on code books, and if you don't know how to set up code books, please, if you're an estimator in the room, don't leave this week without finding out how you can actually do that back at your office. Because the second thing it gives you is it allows you to now all of a sudden start making use of history. And this is an area that we've really focused on over the past couple of years. And that is taking the historical information that you've been collecting, whether it's in Heavy Job, as far as achieved productions, or in HeavyBid, as far as your historical estimates that you've put together. And so we really want to unlock this history, and that history is really made so much easier with your codebook set up. So let's see how that works in HeavyBid. I'm going to open up HeavyBid. This is an activity I've got. I'm going to click on the binoculars button, and that's going to open up my history screen. So you'll notice in the upper right-hand corner, it's set to production history. So what this is doing is it's found all of the times I've used this activity code in any job in Heavy Job. And it's showing me the actual production that I achieved in Heavy Job. So I can uncheck or check any of those checkboxes to the left, which includes or not includes them into the calculations. And so it's coming up with an average production rate here. If you don't have a historical code, you can search by keyword. So I'm going to search for the word clear. And what that's going to do is it's going to show me all the times I've used the word clear in any cost code. And I can uncheck anything that I don't want to make part of this calculation because it's really not relevant for this particular bid. But I can see all those productions that were achieved. I see the averages on the top of the screen. And then I've got on the right-hand side of the screen an area that says use the following production rate. And if I check that checkbox and hit the return history button, what that's going to do is it's going to set my activity production to that rate, and it's going to put in the notes the jobs that I've used as comparison jobs to reinforce that I can hit that production. Now I can also go to that same screen as an estimator, and I can do the same searches, not on production history, but on estimate history. So what it's doing here is it's using my historical estimates that I've put together and use the bid production rates that I've done. So I can, again, do keyword searches here. So if I search by the word clear, it's going to show that regardless of what activity code I actually used. I can check or uncheck any of the things that I want to have as part of the comparison. I get all my totals in the top of the screen. And I've got all that at my fingertips without having to remember which jobs I set all that in. So I've got a production rate here for my estimate. I'm going to uncheck not to use it, and I'm going to send it back to my notes. And now I'll have top to bottom my notes of how I've achieved the productions and what I normally bid. So I've got all that at my fingertips when I go to review an estimate with the chief estimator at my company. So it's a great set of tools that we've really expanded over the past few years. And if you're an estimator in the room, something great for you to look at while you're here. So let's talk about IT, construction IT. Most analysts, most general industry analysts call 2018 the tipping point year. And what they mean by that is it's the year in which if you're still using primarily local servers back at your office, you're paying a premium. And you might ask yourself, how in the world am I paying a premium? I paid for that server one time. Well, it's all the cost that goes into making that server secure, making it accessible, making it configurable. You know, we've got so much malware, we've got so much issues with security that it takes a lot of an IT person's time to manage that server. And so if you're using local servers at the office, know that you're actually reaching the point where you're probably paying a premium right now. Most companies that I know are at least starting to blend in some cloud computing and local computers. And I think the smartest companies out there are really looking at cloud solutions somewhat as a direct cost saver, but primarily as a way to free up your IT people. You know, the best use of your IT people are in the best case scenario, they're people that you can rely on to help you investigate solutions, technology solutions that you can implement in your company. And by going to a cloud, you can free up those IT people to really be your right-hand men in getting that done. So look into the cloud if you don't know how that works this week. Before we leave the office, a couple things that we're doing that you may want to look into while you're here. Again, we're going to talk a little bit more about these tomorrow in tomorrow morning's R&D keynote. But we are working on a new part of the system that we can use for RFIs, submittals, and change orders. So you can communicate with your subs, with your suppliers, with your owners, with your design engineers, have one place to keep all that information stored. So we'll show you a little bit more about that, but look into it if that's a problem for you. And we'll also have a new business intelligence application that works with our software and other data sources like your accounting systems or your scheduling. So there'll be more information we'll show on that tomorrow, but something major for you to look at this week if that's an initiative that you're looking into in the office. So how about the shop? What can you do in the shop to really jump ahead from an automation standpoint? So again, we see a lot of different shops.